Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Beacon Way podcast. I'm Adrienne Wilkerson, your host today, and I'm super excited about our topic today. We're actually going to be talking about voice search, what it is it even important? And of course, the answer is yes, it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this podcast. So with that, let's jump right in. The question we get asked a lot by clients, is AI voice search something I need to worry about? Is it something that is relevant to me and my practice? And the answer I always give is absolutely, definitely, yes, it is. And so I kind of give these examples, like picture this. So your potential client is driving to work and they're going to be asking Siri or whatever their voice AI is of choice about the best ADHD treatment centers near me. Meanwhile, maybe another client is at home and they're using Google's visual search to identify therapy approaches from an infographic that maybe they saw on your social media. Or a third person is having a conversation with ChatGPT about finding culturally competent mental health services for their teenager. Honestly, these aren't glimpses of some distant future. This is happening right now. And if your mental health practice isn't optimized for these new voice AI search behaviors, sadly, you're already falling behind. The truth is, as most of us know, AI has fundamentally changed how people discover and evaluate healthcare providers. Traditionally, SEO still matters, but it's no longer enough in and of itself. Today's successful marketing strategies absolutely must embrace AI voice optimization, often referred to as AIVO now, and visual search SEO, and what some experts call generative engine optimization, or GEO. I know it's an alphabet soup of acronyms. We're all wading through this. We're all kind of trying to figure out which acronym's really going to kind of emerge as the dominant acronym. So if you've got acronym fatigue, you're not alone. We're all kind of struggling with that and wading through it at the moment. But statistics do tell a very compelling story. According to Invoca, voice searches now account for over 50% of all searches, with 71% of consumers preferring voice queries over typing. Which, now granted, this may not resonate with you, but this is some of the consumer data that we're seeing come out right now. And for healthcare specifically, data actually suggests that voice search usage has jumped as much as 400% since 2020. 5 years, 400% growth. So your future patients are already using this technology. The question is whether they can find you. So how is this new search landscape evolving? And what makes AI search different? So traditional search engines showed us 10 blue links, right? We're all used to those 10 blue links on Google. Today, search generative experiences provide direct answers and conversational responses, as well as contextual recommendations. So it's less about keywords and which page of Google you rank on, and it's more about, is your content answering questions that are relevant to the queries that AI is getting? So when somebody asks what's the best approach for treating social anxiety in teenagers, they don't necessarily want a list of websites. They want an immediate, helpful answer. And this is often the difference a lot of people are drawing, us included, between traditional search engines and the searching that people are doing through AI. The traditional search response, Google, Bing, Yahoo, all of those fun places, it's very much of a keyword response to your query. You might get 100 pages and you've got to search through all of those and dig through the links, make your own conclusions, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You should still be drawing your own conclusions from what AI presents you, but it used to take us so much more time to search through all of this massive amount of data that we would get from our search queries. Now we're really depending very heavily on AI to do a lot of that sorting and prioritization for us and find websites that and companies that are out there specifically answering the questions that we're asking. So this shift really demands a completely different approach to content creation and optimization. Instead of targeting single keywords, successful practices now much focus on a more semantic search optimization. This means understanding the intent, context, and conversational nature of how people are actually seeking information. So here's what this could mean for your practice. Your content really must answer questions naturally. It must provide comprehensive value and demonstrate expertise in ways that the AI systems can understand and recommend. So what does this mean really? So what we found in our experience is that there's really 4 primary pillars for the modern search behavior. The first one was part of what we started talking about today, voice first queries. People speak differently than when they type. Voice searches are typically longer, they're more conversational, and they're always question based. Think about how you used to type something into Google. You might type depression treatment near me, depression treatment for teenagers. We would essentially ask in terms of keywords, and we had to learn what keywords would get us the response we needed. And so a lot of us, as we had to learn how to use Google, it was learning how to use keywords effectively to get the search results we wanted. Now we're actually asking AI questions. How do I know if I need help for depression? That's a very different approach to possibly the same search as depression treatment. So we need to make sure that our content that we're providing through our website, through our blogs, even through our social media posts on Instagram and other platforms, that they're answering questions and in doing it in a very natural way, that as if we were having a conversation with that person. Another pillar of modern search behavior is visual discovery. Clients are increasingly using image search to understand treatment options, find providers, and even validate their choices. Visual search SEO now requires optimizing our images, infographics, and voice content for discovery. So this is actually optimizing our images on the back end using alt tags and different things that aren't just keyword optimized, but they're actually optimized for questions that people might ask. Another pillar is conversational AI interaction. Sounds complicated, but really what it is ChatGPT, Bard, Gemini, all of these different tools are becoming primary research assistants, if you will, for our clients. People are having very detailed conversations about their mental health needs before they're ever visiting a website. So again, think about potentially how you're searching or your kids are searching using AI. Historically, again, we might plug a bunch of keywords into Google. Hopefully we get close to, results. We probably don't go past the first page of Google, but we end up going down these rabbit holes, right? We would click on a link that might lead us to another link, to another link. We're not having as the same type of engagement, let's say, with Google search as we are with our AI now, partially because we can ask it complete questions. And so it'll give us search and we can even tell it, hey, that doesn't work for us. We're really looking for this. Or, okay, well, what about this particular piece? And it's now shifted to this very interesting conversation. And people are treating AI, again, like a research assistant, and they're having full-on conversations with it. So we need to make sure that the content that we're putting out aligns with that conversational way of marketing and the way that people are asking questions. Now, personally, I'm really excited about this because it really, I feel, is coming back and reinforcing a piece that has always been close to my heart in marketing. And this is the purpose of marketing, is to create connection. Yes, we want those connections to lead to leads, to new clients. But at the end of the day, we're trying to market to be able to create connection. People as a whole, as humanity, we hate to be sold, but we really want to buy from somebody we know, like, and trust. What does that mean? It means we have connection with them. And so when we're answering questions as opposed to just optimizing for keywords, I believe that there's an opportunity here for to really bring back more humanity into our marketing and really be able to present content that is conversational and really focus on not just keywords, but answering questions that people really find relevant. The fourth pillar of some of our modern marketing these days is intent-based results. So modern search really prioritizes understanding what somebody truly needs. Again, not just matching keywords. So this comes back to my point from before. There's potentially a deeper human element here that marketing has kind of gotten away from, where we were focusing so much on keywords. So now we're really being able to connect with an algorithm that looks for comprehensive and authoritative content, but it serves the complete user journey. It's not just focusing on how many keywords can we cram into this article that might connect with somebody out there. It's more about being intentional. What questions are we hearing a lot from clients? What's important to them? What is going to create authentic connection? And in doing that, we really have an opportunity to even use AI to create greater human connection, which is kind of a unique take on all of this. So this may all sound great to you. Often the next question I get is, well, what does that mean for traditional SEO? Does that mean it's falling short now? The answer is yes and no. So many marketing strategies are still focusing on kind of gaming the search algorithm rather than serving real human needs. And so this approach is not just becoming ineffective, but counterproductive. And so that's why I mean that SEO, if you're practicing that type of SEO, yes, it's going to fall short. If your SEO was always still focused on the intent and really establishing human connection through the content that you're doing, then you're probably not that far off. But as I mentioned before, the traditional kind of keyword stuffing models really don't work anymore because they don't work with the AI systems, because the AI systems are programmed to evaluate content equally. They're looking at relevance. They're really going deeper in beyond the keywords into value, into all these different pieces. So a generic blog post about anxiety treatment, for example, won't really surface in voice search results that seek specific and often actionable guidance. So content that reads like it's written for robots is definitely not going to engage the more sophisticated AI systems that really now mediate between searchers and information. So we essentially have this middleman that we're negotiating with between us and the client. That often used to be Google. We kind of knew what Google wanted. We could kind of play their game, if you will, and get our searches out there. Now we're interacting with a middleman, if you will, that is actually interacting with our client in a much more sophisticated way. So practices that historically thrived on old school SEO tactics, by that I mean the keyword stuffing, the backlinks, all of that kind of things, really are discovering that their traffic is declining. This is a story we're hearing across the board. Their content isn't being surfaced in AI-generated responses, and their brand isn't part of the conversation when people seek recommendations. So the hard part is Google is still setting the standard for search. So we can't ignore Google. We're not out there to ignore Google. So there's certain things that we still need to follow some of Google's basic fundamental outlines, because a lot of their outlines are, again, setting the standard. They really kind of set the tone for what is quality content. But we can't rely just on Google anymore to be able to rank our website. For example, getting to the first page of Google, which used to be like the gold standard for why you did content and SEO and all these kind of things, it doesn't really matter that much anymore because AI doesn't care whether you're on the first page of Google or the fifth page of Google. They're searching the entire internet for content. And they're more worried, is this a credible source? So they're more concerned, AI is going to be more concerned about making sure that what their recommendations are is based on, in theory, quality, credible sources. So the good news is the practices and the clients of ours that are embracing these changes, they're not just surviving, they're experiencing very unprecedented growth in patient acquisition and engagement. So there is good news in all of this. So kind of let's dig into some of these parts. So what is AI VO Advantage and how can you optimize for voice search? So number one, you got to speak your patient's language. AI voice optimization starts with understanding how your clients actually speak about their challenges. They typically don't say comorbid anxiety, depression treatment. Again, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, they're going to ask real questions like, why do I feel anxious and sad at the same time? And what can I do about it? So the first question might be, why do I feel anxious and sad at the same time? And AI is going to give them a response and they're going to say, well, what can I do about that? And who can help me? And so again, it's going to be an interactive back and forth engagement with AI. Successful practices that we're seeing across the board are really restructuring their content around these natural language patterns. So they're creating FAQ sections that mirror real conversations and answer real questions that are being asked. They are developing content that answers follow-up questions and really ensuring that their information is accessible through voice interfaces. For example, one thing that we're doing, like instead of a page titled Adolescent Behavioral Health Services, we might actually change the title of a page that says, how do I help my teenager who's struggling with behavioral problems? And we're going to be actually using questions like that throughout a service page or throughout a blog or an article. The content needs to flow naturally. It needs to provide immediate value. And it really needs to anticipate what is the next logical question. So your article or blog can have a primary topic, and then it kind of needs to flow through the blog, like what would be the next logical question if somebody had answered the question above, what's the next logical question that they might answer? And so your content needs to flow like that. Again, think of it as being more of a conversation. So some of the local voice optimization strategies that we've seen be successful, again, they're inherently local is what we're seeing. When somebody asks for help, they typically want nearby options. They're not looking for a clinic that can help them that's on the other side of the country. Now, if they're looking for telehealth and you're certified to provide telehealth services in their state, then that crosses that local boundary. But a lot of times we're seeing that, again, if somebody's doing voice search, they're typically looking for something nearby. So this creates a tremendous opportunity for multi-location practices that optimize correctly. So what is optimizing correctly, you might ask? Okay, you see, this is the next logical question. All right, so your local optimization strategy should include the following. It needs to have conversational location pages. Instead of dry service descriptions, create content that answers questions like, what makes your downtown location different? So your question might actually be, what makes our downtown location different? Or which of our offices specializes in family therapy? So get specific, answering questions that are relevant to your end user. Second, natural language business listings. Okay. Ensure your Google Business profile includes conversational descriptions and anticipates voice search queries. Use the language your patients actually use, not clinical terminology. Again, we're not looking for keywords here. We're looking for a real conversation. Next one, your third one is neighborhood specific content. So develop content that addresses local community needs as well as cultural considerations. So voice search often includes contextual informations like near the university or in our local community or in the Hispanic community. So it needs to connect to what somebody would consider important to them. One question that I get asked a lot is visual search the overlooked opportunity? It is an opportunity, I believe, that doesn't require tremendous work, but it really can make a difference. So again, visual search SEO requires thinking differently about every image, infographic, and video in your practice creates. These visual elements are becoming discovery points, not just supporting content. So successful practices we've seen really optimize their visual content by a few different things. One of them is strategic alt text. So describe images in natural conversational language that matches how people would verbally describe what they see instead of maybe going therapist office .jpg. Use comfortable office with natural lighting, calming colors in XYZ local community. You're pulling in a bunch of different elements that, again, are more conversational and connect with your local community. Another really important one for visual search is infographic storytelling. This is creating visual content that tells complete stories about treatment approaches, patient journeys, or even mental health concepts. These often surface in visual search results and can be discovered independently of your website, which could lead then AI to your website or various other things. Video optimization is our third and perhaps most important option here, because video optimization, again, it's a video, it's conversational, it's interactive. Potentially, at least, people are getting to see you, see your body language. So you want to develop video content that answers common questions in a very natural, authentic way. These perform especially well in voice search results and help establish expertise. These are also very powerful to use across your social media advertising. Google is now indexing Instagram, which means it's going to be showing up in more AI searches. So the videos that you put out are really important across all the different platforms. So let's talk about making visual content discoverable. The key to visual search success really lies in making your images and your videos findable, discoverable through descriptive and natural language. This means thinking about how somebody would describe looking for visual information about your mental health services. So one idea is to consider visual content around common questions. So therapy room tours for people wondering what to expect when they show up at your clinic for the first time. You might do infographics explaining different treatment approaches, or a brief video explaining more complex topics like EMDR or DBT. So let's talk about another acronym that's floating around a lot, which is generative engine optimization. What is it? Why does it matter? So generative engine optimization focuses on creating content that AI systems will reference and recommend in their responses to your potential client. This requires a shift from trying to rank for specific terms to becoming a trusted, comprehensive resource on topics relevant to your practice. So oftentimes what's happening right now, less and less people are going to Google. You're hearing this ad nauseum in this podcast, but very few people are going to Google and typing in keywords anymore. What's happening is people are asking an AI of their choice first. So by the time they're going to Google and they're typing in your website, they've already done the research on you, and they're usually down to maybe three choices thanks to AI. So when they're hitting Google, they're often actually searching for your company name because it was provided by AI, and AI may or may not provide the link. But they're oftentimes the named search that we're seeing in search results is increasing. Often that is because, again, people are searching Google based on a recommendation from AI. So when ChatGPT or Google's AI provider or Perplexity or Gronk or any of those provides information about mental health treatment options, it's really important. You want your practice's expertise to be part of that response. And you want AI to prioritize, obviously, recommending your clinic. So this happens when your content demonstrates clear expertise, provides comprehensive value, and addresses topics thoroughly. So how do you build authority with the AI systems? AI systems evaluate content very differently than traditional algorithms. They're going to be looking for some specific things. One of the things they're looking for is comprehensive coverage. So instead of multiple short posts on different topics, it's going to be more important to create in-depth resources that cover subjects completely. So, for example, a comprehensive guide to anxiety treatment, which maybe is going to outperform maybe 5 separate blogs on specific techniques. Another area is to establish expert credibility by clearly establishing the credentials and the expertise of your clinical team. AI systems kind of factor authority into their recommendations, especially for healthcare topics. Another one is to make sure that your information is updated. This seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how often it gets overlooked. Make sure you're keeping your content current and accurate. AI systems will prioritize recent, reliable information, particularly in healthcare contexts where outdated information could be very harmful. Another one, and our final point under this subheading, is really the interconnected content. So you want to develop content that's going to naturally link to related topics and provide very comprehensive coverage of patient needs. This is going to really help AI systems understand the depth and the breadth of your experience. So another trend that we're seeing that's becoming really, really important is backlinks are becoming less important. AI doesn't seem to give the same authority to backlinks that Google does. What we're seeing that AI is prioritizing is more citations. So they're looking for how many times is your company listed in different modalities, different platforms. So is your company getting referenced on Medium, for example? Is there an article on Medium that references your company name, references the services that you provide or one of your providers? Is there another article on Substack? So is there an article in Psychology Today that references your company? They're looking for these critical citations. Are you getting listed and talked about on LinkedIn? Are you getting referenced and talked about on Instagram? Are people sharing your information? They're looking for reputable sources in your industry that have good authority and recognition. For instance, again, Psychology Today is a very well-recognized authority in this industry. Is there something there that is referencing you and your company? So AI is, again, combing more data and more information than most of us could ever do. And so they're looking for these interconnected links, and they're considering that very much citation type things. So that is going to bring and rank your material, your company higher in AI's recommendations than, say, if you're only being referenced on your own website. So again, we're trying to move beyond keywords. This is really probably the most solid theme throughout this entire podcast. So semantic search options, they really require understanding not just what people are searching for, but why they're searching and what they really need. This is particularly crucial in mental health, where the same symptoms might indicate different underlying needs. So when someone is searching for information about, quote unquote, maybe feeling overwhelmed, they might need stress management techniques, anxiety treatment, depression support, or work-life balance strategies. So successful practices are going to be creating content that acknowledges this complexity and provides pathways to appropriate care. And that pathway might be reach out to us. We're going to help you find your appropriate pathway to appropriate care. People are doing a lot of self-diagnosing on AI. This can be very helpful or very dangerous. So again, you want to be that authority out there going, yes, you might have this. Yes, this might be a different issue. And you need to come in and talk to an authority, somebody who's qualified and has a lot of experience in this, who can actually really help you determine what your root cause is and the best pathway to that treatment. It's really important to create content that matches your user's intent. So there's a couple different stages that are really important to pay attention to as you're developing content. Awareness stage is the broadest stage. This is the stage where people are trying to understand and name their experience. So any content that helps them answer questions like, why am I feeling this way? Is this normal? Is this not normal? Those are questions that are addressing the awareness stage of somebody in that first layer of trying to understand what's going on. You're also going to need content that approaches people at the consideration stage. So this is information about actual treatment options, what therapy might involve, and how to choose the right therapist or the right approach or the right clinic. So that's another stage of content that you can target. The third one that we're going to talk about today is the decision stage. So this is specific content or information about your practice, about your approach, and what makes you the right choice over somebody else. So this can actually, a lot of these stages, FAQs are really powerful in every one of these stages. Again, you're presenting different types of information in these stages, but FAQ can be really helpful. Again, AI loves FAQs because it's a question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. So it really aligns with the way that AI does stuff. Multi-location practices really have a very unique advantage in this new search landscape, but truly only if they approach optimization strategically. The key is maintaining brand consistency while addressing local needs and search behaviors. So as a clinic, if you're tackling this, you need to develop a centralized content strategy that can be adapted to local markets. Well, what might this include, you ask? I'm glad you asked that. So there's different things to focus on. First one is core content templates. So you want to create comprehensive guides and resources that can be customized for each location's specific patient populations and community characteristics. Typically, there's a reason why you have multiple locations. Oftentimes, that's a different client profile in a different area. One area might be, have a lot more single college age or young adult populations. You might have a different community that's focused more on retired people. You might have another one that's focused predominantly on families. They're each going to need maybe a central core content, but it needs to be adapted to each one of those client profiles in those areas. Another centralized content strategy piece needs to be local voice optimization. So you really need to train each of your staff at the different locations to understand and incorporate local search behavior and language patterns into their patient interactions and the content creation. So if you're working with an agency on this, it's really important to coordinate both what your in-house staff are communicating to patients and what's going into content creation. Because the last thing you want is somebody to have a great online experience, feel a real connection to you, and want to come see you, and then show up and have a completely different experience when they're talking to the front desk staff or the billing specialist or any of that kind of thing. So it's really important that your content, what you're communicating online, aligns with what's being said, your brand that people are experiencing when they walk in the door. Another one that's a little more technical is a consistent schema markup. So you really want to make sure that all your locations are consistent and they have structured data that helps AI systems understand your services, expertise, and availability across the markets. And this really has to do with schema. It's a back-end website thing. We have some other blogs that talk about schema markups, but it is something that really the public doesn't see, but it's languaging on the back end of your website that AI, that search engines do see, and it helps them sort the data, understand where to find the data on your website, very similar to tables of contents and things like that. So that one's probably the one that's the most hidden, if you will, but definitely not one to overlook. So let's touch on cross-location content. So you do, even though you want to be able to tailor your content to each location, it's still important to be able to have some content that showcases the benefits of your multi-location model. So people might search for therapy practices with multiple locations or ask voice assistants about mental health clinics that can see me at different offices. Maybe they work across town and they want to know, do you have a clinic that's close to my work and maybe another clinic that's close to my home so that it's convenient, whichever location I'm coming from, there's a place that I can meet. So that's kind of a little known one, but it can be a really valuable and important one to focus on. So let's talk measuring. Let's talk measuring success. It's always a challenge when you have new methods that come out to actually be able to track metrics. Traditional SEO metrics like keyword rankings have become less relevant with AI systems because the AI systems are interrupting our typical client-patient journey. So what do we focus on now if that's the case? A lot of us are seeing pretty significant website search, especially SEO-driven website search, really decreasing. So here's some other things that you can track. You can track voice search visibility, track how often your practice appears in voice search results for relevant queries. This requires specialized monitoring tools and techniques, but you can't even do it yourself. You can use voice search on your phone through your AIs and search for your practice. Do you come up? If not, you got some work to do. If you do show up, amazing. Keep building on that. There's also AI system references. So you can monitor mentions and recommendations in AI generated responses across all the platforms. It's important to track. Patient journey analytics is another one. Understanding how patients discover and engage with your content across multiple platforms, and the complete journey from awareness to scheduling is really important. Now, there's some great tracking tools out there that can help you track from beginning to end that way. Attribution is still challenging to be able to track, meaning what was the thing that finally made them fill out the form or finally made them give you the call. And so a lot of marketing agencies, we're actually tracking the entire patient journey, not just the final attribution. So not just the final thing. Was it a Google ad? Was it a Meta ad? Was it, an AI search? But we're tracking a lot of the journey because People still need 7 to 10 touch points before they're actually ready to do something. So they're probably going to interact with your content, with your company in a lot of different ways before they actually decide to reach out to you. So think about, instead of tracking direct attribution, track the entire patient journey. Another thing that is really important to track is local discovery metrics. So you can actually track discovery through visual search, voice search, and AI recommendations at a local level. And for many of our clients, that's really what matters the most, because people are looking for that local therapist. They're looking for that connection close to home. So it's really important to adapt now your analytics approach. So you want to set up tracking systems that capture full patient discovery journey, including interactions that don't result in immediate website visits, but influence the future decision. So this could also include brand mentions and AI responses, voice search impressions, or visual content discoveries, mentions on social media, all this kind of stuff. This is not necessarily tied directly to the customer journey, but you can see where people are interacting with your brand online, and that can really give you a good idea of where to put more time and more money. All right, so let's kind of wrap up today. How can your mental health practice appear in voice search results? Here's your next steps. We've got 5 of these. So, to begin improving your digital presence, consider these actionable steps. Number 1, understand your audience. Conduct thorough research to identify the questions, concerns, and preferences of your target audience. This will help you create content that resonates with their needs and their expectations and truly creates connection with your potential clients. 2, develop quality content. No surprise there. If you've listened to this whole podcast, you understand content is still king, and quality content is really what's going to move the needle. So you need to focus on producing well-researched, in-depth articles, guides, and media that, guess what? Provide real value to the users. Answer questions that are relevant to them. You need to wipe keyword stuffing from your vocabulary, avoid it like the plague, and instead aim for engaging, informative, and easy to understand content. 3, enhance accessibility. So really ensure that your website and all of its content is accessible to all users, including those with disabilities. This really includes implementing alt tag for images, which we've talked about earlier on in this podcast. It also relates to clear navigation, mobile-friendly design, because honestly, most people will use AI to do their initial research. They'll use it to narrow down to their top 3 to 5 choices, but then they're going to go check out your website. And if don't have a good user experience on your website, if it's not easily accessible, they're going to bounce and go to the next option, because honestly, AI gave them at least 3, probably 5. All right, number 4, you want to optimize for local search. Most search engines are most searches are location specific, especially for healthcare services. So using local keywords, claim your business listings, and collect authentic reviews to strengthen your local SEO. And yes, I did say use local keywords. I've been harping on getting rid of keywords through this whole podcast, but what I mean is make sure that in the questions that you're asking and answering, you are including local search keyword things, whether it's your local community, whether it's your local group that you're connecting to, your ideal client profile. That could be teens, it could be mothers, it could be divorcees, whatever it is that is your specialty. Connect that to local search in the questions that you're asking and answering. All right, fifth and final, leverage analytics. data is going to be your best friend, even if you are not a fan of data, because it really helps you understand, am I going the right direction? Is what I'm doing effective? So you want to continuously monitor your website's performance. And we talked about it earlier, your performance and where you're showing up all over the website, all over the internet, sorry. You want to use analytic tools that identify what works and doesn't, because we are in a time of constant and very rapid change. So what works today may or may not work tomorrow. So you want to use these insights from the data that you're collecting to really refine your strategy over time and see what's working for you and what's not. So by following these different steps, I'm really hoping that your practice can not just adapt to the evolving digital landscape, but build a stronger, more meaningful connection with your audience and really be able to help more people. So I hope today's podcast was really helpful for you. I know we covered a lot of information. We do have this information in written form. We'll provide a link in the comments below to the original article. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today on this episode of the Beacon Way podcast. And we look forward to having you join us next time.
You have been listening to the Beacon Way podcast. Make sure to join us for new episodes every week. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Beacon Way on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.